Hello there, and a very warm welcome to Chazingdra Chats, the show where we take a stroll through the life stories of people in the Pokemon community, discovering the 6 Pokemon on their dream team along the way. I'm Charlie Merriman, Merry by name, Merry by nature, a host and commentator for the Pokemon Video Game Championship Series, and a content creator, otherwise known as Chazingdra. And I very much hope that my guest and I can brighten your day this week, because I have the pleasure of being joined by someone who really showcases the breadth that this wonderful game has to offer. It is Kwikpanik, otherwise known as Kyle Wilkinson. Kyle, how are you doing?
What's kicking, man? How are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I am doing super well on this fine Saturday morning.
It is a fine Saturday morning. Is it sunny where you are?
Oh, all the time because I live in Texas. There's only sun.
I see. Yeah. I was going to say it's surprisingly warm and sunny day here in the UK. I think it is more common than people realise over here in the UK. We get a bad rap. But yeah, it's a beautiful May day here.
Yeah, it starts
July and
early for us
August.
too. We go from
Yeah.
like April until November is summer.
November. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Wow. I can't. I don't think I'm built for that kind of
I'm not
climate.
either. It's very hard.
Okay, Carl. So, for anyone who's not so familiar with you, can you just give a brief introduction to yourself?
Sure. My name is Kyle Wilkinson. Most people on the internet will know me as Kwikpanik. I'm a content creator. I started back in 2017 by streaming some shiny hunting in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Specifically, my goal was to shiny hunt for my VGC team members because I started playing VGC back in 2014. And yeah, I just decided to mix my two passions, shiny hunting and VGC. And it's been a blast. I've been very, very lucky to have a very cool community and great people around me.
Yeah, it's so cool that you blend those two facets of the game, and I know we're gonna take a much deeper dive into all of that. But yeah, I was watching the stream for the Indianapolis Regional Championships recently, and I was thinking, oh, I really want to guest on who I've had a few from the competitive scene. I really want to guest on who sort of blends competitive and something else. Where am I going to find that? And then lo and behold, one of your posts comes up on stream with your shiny Lugia, I believe it was, and you
Yep.
were there playing, of course, at Indianapolis. You reached day 2. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just penny drop moment. I thought, oh, of course. And so I messaged you completely out of the blue, and thank you so much for going along with it and being here today.
Yeah, no, you're very much welcome. That was really exciting to see. I had played Rosemary Kelly on Friday at the PC, and she and I are friends, and we got to chat for a little bit. And so we talked about my shiny Regieleki, and it got me really pumped up to take my consoles, my old DSs that I play my shiny hunting quests on, and go around the venue and take pictures. And when I made day 2, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my favorite legendary Pokemon that I've ever shiny hunted and just bring it to the venue for good luck. And I got lucky enough to get pulled on stream with my tweet. So
Got lucky to get pulled on stream, but I mean, the luck was possibly a factor reaching day 2, but I'm sure that was also your hard work and your skill there as
it's
well.
got to be a
So,
mix. You don't make
yeah,
day 2 without at least a little bit of luck in your favor.
exactly. And as a shiny hunter, you have a unique perspective on the luck element of life generally, I guess.
Uh-huh.
That
Yeah.
random number generator that determines everything.
Mhm.
Um, so, Kyle, let's get to know you better and discover your handpicked 6 Pokemon. Thank you for your openness with what you're sharing today.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I believe we're going right back to the start, to your introduction to gaming.
Yeah. So it was a long time ago. Uh, approximately almost 30 years ago. Um, I was raised by a family who had a farm, and during the day when I went to go visit my family on this farm, we would be working as long as the sun was up because that's how it works on a farm, driving around tractors and feeding livestock and fixing fences, things to that effect. It was pretty hard day most days when I went out there. It was hot because Texas. And when we got back into the house, my grandmother would make dinner for us, and my uncle and I would sit down in front of the TV and play the NES that they had. And I did not have an NES. My family didn't have any video games until I was um, probably 6 or 7. And we would sit down and play Super Mario Bros, like the old ba-da-bop, over and over because I was very bad at it. And it would just be game over, try again, because I was like 5. And The Legend of Zelda, the 1986 version. And I was ultra bad at that one because that one gives you no directions. You like walk into a cave and he's like, here's a sword. And then he disappears and there's 0 directions. It's a miracle I became a gamer because that is a rough start to being a gamer. So yeah, that's how I got it all started, was farm work during the day, and then my reprieve from the sun and the hard work was gaming, specifically on that old NES.
Mm. That sounds really idyllic in many, many ways. What a fascinating upbringing. I mean, what stands out to me there is, so your grandparents had an NES.
Yeah, my
Wow.
grandparents had an NES. My grandmother had the first old brick Game Boy and the copy of Tetris that came with it.
Okay.
And she let me play that
I see.
frequently. So the old green dingy screen and everything, and just a little puzzle game. So yeah, I was lucky to grow up with grandparents who were very open to technology. And specifically the reason that they liked these games was the music. I am a musician by trade and education, and there's some great music that goes into Nintendo games. Pokemon is phenomenal at making music for their games, and Legend of Zelda, Mario. I did the ba 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 ba, and I'm sure like most people could be like, I know exactly where Mario is standing. There's a block right here. It's crazy how formative that music can be, and my grandparents very much appreciated it.
That's gamer grandparents. Love to hear it.
Yeah, not
So
my
cool.
grandpa. No,
Okay.
not my grandpa. He still
Gamer
doesn't even.
grandmother.
No, he doesn't text at all. But my
Okay.
grandmother,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
my grandmother, and my
I feel like
uncle.
there's. You should write a children's book. I think gamer grandmother. I think it really
Oh
well.
my gosh, that sounds beautiful. I'm gonna cry.
Yeah. And I fully get you with Zelda. I didn't play Zelda at all when I was younger, but there was such buzz around Tears of the Kingdom last year that my girlfriend and I started playing, and she also had never played Zelda, and we are so bad. We're so bad. Like, we're at a bit where you have to jump into a volcano,
Right.
but we don't have a parachute yet, and so we would just die. And whenever
Right.
I told people who have played the game about this, they were like, "How'd you
you get there
That's like
without
the
the
first thing
parachute?"
you
Yeah.
get." But this is the thing with these open world games. I love it that there's no set path, but also you need some kind of train tracks to stay on, right? Because otherwise you end up just plummeting into lava over and over again. But yeah, so
impressive.
I feel Zelda, literal baptism of fire for us both.
Yeah,
I think,
literal.
with Zelda, and I mean, I couldn't agree with you more about the music in Pokemon games, but I mean, a variety of video games. But it's such a formative. Pokemon's all about nostalgia, and one way to really tap into that,
For sure.
tap into that, tap into the memory, I guess, is with memorable music.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's brilliant to hear. But then, so started with your grandmother, but then also you were playing specifically Pokemon. You moved on to that with your dad and your sister, and then your school friends as well.
Yeah, it was actually my dad, ironically, very stoic man, who got me into Pokemon. So we used to watch anime growing up. So probably like 6 or 7, Toonami started showing anime in the evenings, and he even changed my bedtime so that he and I could watch Dragon Ball Z at 10 p.m. Which, like I said, very stoic man. And if he does something like that, it means it's sentimental to him. So it had a huge impact on me. And he read the paper every single morning. We would wake up. He and I were always first to rise, and we would eat our cereal together and just like, hey, how you doing? You doing good? All right, okay, I'll see you later. Have fun at school. And one morning he's reading the newspaper, and the first episode of Pokemon to air in the US was being talked about in the paper because it was such a phenomenon, a huge hit in Japan. And I guess our news station latched onto it, and they posted that the SSN, for some reason, was the first episode that aired in the US. And it was like the pilot episode. is what it was labeled. And so my dad was like, "Do you want to wake up early tomorrow and watch it together?" And I was like, "Okay, cool, new anime. Like I'm down for that." So we watched that first episode, and it feels like all of Pokemon hit at once in the US. It was like I watched that episode. I went to school maybe a couple of weeks later, and my friend Corey, I haven't talked to him in decades. I hope he's doing well. My friend Corey came to school with cards, and he had a Charmeleon card and an Onyx card, and he gave them to me on the playground. And I was like, "Oh, these are the guys from that show. Okay, cool. Like this is great." And not much happened with it until we went to Thanksgiving at my grandmother's house in Florida, my other grandmother. And we were middle class. So it was like, we're going to drive to Florida from Texas, which, if you're not familiar, it's a 24-hour drive. Not you're driving and taking a break throughout one singular day, but it's 24 hours of driving. And my mom was just praying that we would make zero noise. So she gave me a Game Boy Pocket and let me pick out a game. So the first game that I ever got was Donkey Kong Country. And for the ride back, she let us pick another game, and I chose Pokemon Red version because I saw Charizard on the front, and he just looks amazing. I don't even think he was in the anime at that point. And I turned on Red version. I had a huge sack of AAA batteries, and my mom was like, "Don't make a sound for this trip, please. It's so exhausting." And then I didn't make a single sound for like 26 years. Yeah. So I got started like that. My sister actually got blue version. And so she and I bond over the first generation of Pokemon specifically and that hit of Pokemon fever. So yeah, that's when it infiltrated the family, and it's still here.
Well, the use of infiltrated there, which is, of course, its own ability.
It is an ability. Yeah.
Infiltrator.
I had an infiltrator Jumpluff that I bred for 2014 VGC. It would have been better to just use chlorophyll.
Oh well, you tried. You tried.
I did my best.
You're a pioneer. You're a pioneer.
Uh-huh.
Wow, that's it's so cool how your journey with Pokemon started really in the family, be it your grandmother or your dad with the anime. And yeah, I think at that age, if I'd been told, okay, we have a 24-hour journey ahead of us where you can literally just play a game. I mean, that's music. I mean, you hadn't played it before, but you assumed, I guess, that you would enjoy it just because you'd been introduced to the characters already.
Yep.
And I obviously in America you're used to longer drives than we are here in the UK. Yeah. But I mean, a 24-hour drive to anyone that's next level.
Yeah, that was rough. Speaking of, did you start with red, blue, yellow, or did you start later on?
So, I have a brother who's 4 years older, and the Pokemon craze really hit when he was the right sort of age for it.
Uh-huh.
He started with red. I was, I think I was just slightly too young for the game to really get into the intricacies. But then a little while later, I did play blue. I think my parents got my brother red and me blue, and I played blue, and I enjoyed it more. But then Johto was really my jam.
Yeah.
With,
we're gonna have a lot to talk about Johto. That's my bread and butter.
Brace yourselves for an 8-hour episode, everybody. But yes, no, I very similar generation. I think it just took me slightly longer to get into it, I guess. But speaking of getting into things, it's time to get into the first Pokemon on your dream team, Kyle. So, as a bit of background to this, as always, the aim for Kyle is not to build the strongest competitive team in any way. It's just to choose Pokemon that are special to him in some way. I have no idea what Kyle's chosen, so let's find out together. Who's the first Pokemon, Kyle?
Yeah, Growlithe. So,
okay.
Growlithe is my first favorite Pokemon. And it came out of almost nowhere, because if you go back to red and blue and you look at the sprite, the character model for Growlithe, it is unique. It doesn't look anything like Growlithe that we have today. And a lot of my memories, my strongest core memories about Pokemon, came from the video game. And Growlithe was actually another familial tie. I didn't even think about this before putting these Pokemon together, but I had a birthday party up in the hill country near the farm where my family was, and I have a cousin who lives up there. He was only 3 or 4 years older than I was, so I guess he's maybe 12, and it was like my 8th birthday, somewhere around there. And he went to a crane machine, and for my birthday, he won me. Oh, I should have busted it out, but it's a little like the size of a Game Boy Advance SP zipper pouch that you could put on your belt, and it had Growlithe on it, and it just says Pokemon. And he was like, I got this for you because you have Game Boy cartridges and you can just like keep them all safe there. And I was like, oh, thank you. And the art for the Growlithe was the Ken Sugimori art, and Ken Sugimori draws like the first initial design for Pokemon, official designs, right? And there's in that time period 2 different arts, and this was like the alternate art. I think it's featured on Blaine's Growlithe in the TCG and Pokemon Gym Challenge or Gym Heroes. And that art just pictured Growlithe in a way that I had never seen it, and I had a brand new appreciation for it. My cousin was somebody who I looked up to a lot. I wanted to live out in the hill country and be on the farm like he was with my grandparents, but I lived in the city, and it was always a drive to get up there. And it meant something to me because up until that point, it had only ever been like the parents or the aunt and uncle or the grandparents that bought gifts. And it struck me early on because he took like this extra step to be like mature and responsible and also thoughtful, because he and I played Pokemon maybe once on like one long car trip. And he just knew it meant a lot to me, and he got me that gift. And seeing Growlithe in that light totally changed my perspective on him. And I just chose as a kid that he would be my favorite, and he stayed my favorite until Johto.
I see. There's a nice little cliffhanger there as well. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was going to say, what an incredibly thoughtful gift at
yeah,
such a young age.
yeah. A 12-year-old.
Yeah,
So
that's
nice.
brilliant. And also, like, clearly going his way with the what was like a grabber machine thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
RNG rolled.
yeah.
It rolled correctly for him too.
Yeah. Yeah. What a touching story. Yes, I know what you mean. It's interesting comparing the artwork from in-game in Generation One to how some of the designs were in the anime. I
Yeah.
feel like it's sort of breathing fire in the
Yeah,
game, right?
so
It's howling in a way, I
there's
think.
3 sprites.
Okay.
Growlithe in yellow version looks like Growlithe. Red and blue, his eyes are kind of just like black, and
Hmm.
one of them he's like pointing this way. And I played red, so I don't remember what the blue sprite is, but
Mm.
yeah, he just looked like dog.
Mm.
And then like in yellow version, and Ken Sugimori's art gave him a lot of personality. And I've always been a
Mm.
dog person. When we were doing a test, you could probably see like there's a dog back there. uh
Oh, right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we had dogs on the farm. I've always been like a dog guy, so I think that was also a huge push for Growlithe to win my heart early on.
Mm. Yeah. Well, it all ties up, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Great. Well, great start. Great first member of your team. So we'll get on to your other 5 Pokemon picks in
Yeah,
due course. But now I think we're going to talk about the diagnosis of your medical condition.
yeah. So I'm very open about my ulcerative colitis journey. Ulcerative colitis is an autoimmune disease that affects your colon. And when I was 13, I had tried out for the basketball team, the tennis team, track and field, and I had made all of the teams. I was poised to be like an athlete, and also band. I was also in band, and this was middle school, which in the U.S. is like when you're from 6th to 8th year of schooling, and it's when you're hitting puberty and everybody is changing, right? Your voice is dropping, you get a little mustache and all that fun stuff when you're a little guy. And I noticed that my stomach felt awful, like sharp pains for a while, for about a week. And unfortunately missed the season for all three teams that I had made it into, and went to a military hospital. My dad was Air Force, and so we went to a military hospital and couldn't figure out what was going on for about 6 weeks. They had no clue what they were doing, and I was in the emergency room, into the doctor's office, overnight at the hospital, and as like a 13-year-old who had never had that much medical attention, it was very tough on me. Luckily, I said this earlier, both of my parents are nurses, so they were very good at handling the situation, and I had made friends with some of their doctor friends early on because I was interested in clinical terminology. So I was very lucky to have some very nice treatment um, from some doctors outside of the military hospital. So I was diagnosed with that pretty early on, and it took me out of all of the social structure that I was excited to get into. So it was a pretty hard time. Luckily, today, I'm in remission, and I found like a diet, the right medications, uh, but with long term illnesses, they never completely go away, and there are triggers. So yeah, that happened really early on, and I was lucky to have a really good support system through it.
Mm. Yeah. Um, the age that happened as well. That's really tough. 13. Just when it feels like, I don't know. I think social things start to feel a little bit different at that age.
They do. Hmm.
So to be taken out of it, that's really that's really really tough. Fortunately, though, I mean, so after those initial 6 weeks where people were working out what was going on, were you did your symptoms then improve quite quickly and you were able to get back to the sport and get back to being in the mix of it?
Yeah. So during the 6 weeks, I lost, I want to say it was 22 pounds, something to
Mm.
that effect. And before all this happened, I had gotten into the weight room and I was feeling great. Like I was lifting weights, and when you're that young, like your joints feel great and you can just lift weights forever. And it felt so motivating. And then I lost all of that weight,
Mm.
and I was completely bedridden for those 6 weeks, 6 or 8 weeks. Um, I was like in and out of the bathroom, which is part of it. And so I just had no strength. And when they finally got the right cocktail of medications down, one of the first things that they do in any inflammatory disease is that they start you on prednisone, and that's supposed to be a inflammatory, anti-inflammatory drug, and it has side effects if you're on it long term, which is water retention. And there's a phenomenon when you're on it for a long time where you get like, specifically your cheeks hold a lot of it. And like you said, when you're like 13, the social norms change, they evolve. And so in kids, they don't know how to treat other people when they're going through a tough time, especially at that age. So I got bullied pretty badly because of my cheeks, and it was like for this medication I had to take for a disease I didn't ask for. So I did not jump back into things at all. I was weak because of all of the weight loss, the rapid weight loss. Uh, I was on medications that made me feel awful for a little bit. So I definitely didn't go back into sports. But what I did do, and it's still something that I do today to help hone not only my mind and also hone my body, is I did go back to the weight room, but in a private capacity. My dad had weights in the garage, and so I just went in there. I read a book called Pumping Iron, which is a pretty popular book for people who like to lift weights. And I just took it upon myself one night. I went into the garage, opened his book, learned some exercises, and so that was probably like step one of getting back on track, was picking up something to it's quiet when you lift weights by yourself in a garage, and it gave me time to think and focus. And a lot of my getting back on track came from kind of closing myself off for a little bit to heal.
So important. Also, at that age must have been, the peace must have been welcome, but also it can be scary, I guess, to be left alone with your thoughts and
Mm-hmm.
feeling isolated in a way that you did. But well, I mean, ultimately, of course, just thrilled that they were able to find the right combination of
Yeah.
medicines and treatments that works for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope that after a rough time with um, how your body was changing because of the medications and how people treated you as a result of that, I hope that ultimately your friends matured and were able to
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I found a friend during that time. Once I started to get back on track, just because of how we aged. I got into 7th grade. The prednisone was gone. If you're not familiar with the drug, it's like a short term drug, and I was on it for like 8 months or something to that effect. But I start feeling more myself, and I'm lifting weights. I feel healthier. I've had time to reflect, and I meet my buddy Logan, who I've been friends with ever since. So it's been 20 something years, and that's where Pokemon comes back in. Is that I during that self reflection period, I was playing Ruby version like I maxed out the clock. It was at 999 hours 59 minutes. So who knows how much time I spent on it. But I met my buddy Logan, who his last name and my last name both start with a W. So in school we got sat together, and I found out that he enjoyed Pokemon too. And because I was still not feeling up to social sports and things to that effect, uh, every single Saturday and sometimes Sundays, we would go to each other's house, and we would just build teams in Ruby and Sapphire and battle each other endlessly. And like we would take notes on what happened last year. Like, I got to figure out something for Regice. What am I going to do about Regice? And then I would go and play Coliseum and build a Machoke, and then like go into the battle with a Machamp the next week, and then he would evolve his team, and now he has a Gardevoir on his team because the Machamp gave his Regice problems. So there was a very, very long standing Saturday that I had with this buddy where we would just play in this fantasy war, essentially. Like, we were just going back and forth and building these teams, hanging out, talking about literally everything under the sun. And that helped me get back into like a social
Mm,
mood. Was playing Ruby and Sapphire specifically with my buddy Logan, and he and I started VGC together years later. So it was really cool
well,
to go through the healing process over the years with him.
yeah, well, maybe I don't know if things hadn't played out the way that they did. Maybe you and Logan wouldn't be so close now. I guess
It's very true.
that's
It's
one way
100%
of
true.
looking at it. And
Yeah.
as someone who also has a long-term health condition, thank you for shining a light on that. I was chiming with a lot of the things you were saying there. So thank you for, again, as I said at the beginning, being so brave and sharing that with us all. Because I think they're things that are always very humanizing, ultimately, to hear.
Mhm.
And important to be talked about. So thank you, Kyle. And now we want to know who's going to be joining Growlithe on your dream team.
Yeah. So we're going to take one step back from that last story, and Quilava, who is my favorite Pokemon of all time. Um, my sister and I played Pokemon together, and we had another family trip. At this point, the Game Boy Color was about to come out or had just come out. And my sister's birthday is in February, mine's in July. For her birthday, she got a pink Game Boy Color, and I was still sitting on my Game Boy Pocket. Uh, but my mom wanted to give her a game that would be able to show off Game Boy Color functionality. Colors coming into play here. And my mom got her, and she still has it. My sister still has it. I'm like, you need to put this in a museum. This looks incredible. But it was a Game Boy Color carrying case with Ho-Oh on it, the pink Game Boy Color, and then gold version. My mom bought all those for her birthday. And when we were young, this might sound silly. I don't know if anybody else can commiserate, but especially because we were young, it was like you got all these things for your birthday, and I'm just like, hello, like I'm also here, please love me. So there would be like a large gift for the birthday child and then a small gift for the other child, just so they'd be like, you got something too, just wait till your birthday. And my mom got me silver version, and Johto was so crazy. It was such a huge change to Pokemon as we know it. um we we played gold and silver version together only for a short while. This is about where my sister exits the franchise, but we're playing gold and silver in the back of my mom's van on this road trip. And I still remember all my starters for all of my first playthroughs of games. I choose Totodile. I see Cyndaquil, Chikorita, Totodile. And we had a very different internet back in the year 2000. There were not spoilers posted from Japan magazines all over the internet. It was like we'd have a Yahoo News article that said, Pika Blue is real. And it was like, no way, that's so cool. And that was about all I would get in terms of new games until like X and Y when we had global releases. And I didn't know what Cyndaquil would become, and I like Totodile. He's a happy dude, and the Sprite and Silver version spoke to me. So I chose Totodile, and my sister chose Chikorita. I love Chikorita. And back in the day, your rival would always choose the Pokemon that had the type advantage against yours. So her rival naturally chose Cyndaquil. Mine chose Chikorita. And we play through the game, and we get to the point in Azalea Town where before you walk through that gate to go to Ilex Forest, your rival pops up, and you probably just beat Bugsy, and Scyther just destroyed your team, and you have like your poor Totodile has like 3.5 HP, and there's like a Hoppip that knows Splash in your party left. And this battle jumps out of nowhere, and my sister is doing the battle, and she's 3 years younger than I am. So she's like 7 doing this, and she's getting very frustrated. And my mom is like, please just help your sister beat the game. I can't focus. And I'm like, oh, give me your Game Boy. Like, what's going on? And I'm battling against Silver, the rival, and getting through the battle. And then he sends out Quilava, and I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, what is this? What is that? And she's like, I think Cyndaquil evolved into that. And I was like, oh my goodness, the gold version sprite for Quilava is phenomenal. And I almost restart my game just to go back and choose it, but I did not. But that Pokemon looked so cool to me. And so a couple of weeks pass when we come back home. And my dad, once again, on Sundays, he liked to go to a flea market, which is like a bunch of like single owner stands.
Yeah.
And my dad liked to go buy baseball cards from one of them, and one of the stands had new Japanese Pokemon cards, and it was actually that first, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically like a binder collection, and it came with Cyndaquil, Quilava, Typhlosion, like all 3 of the evolutions of each of the starters. And the guy had the whole binder, and he was selling them individually. And my dad was like, you guys can choose 1 card each. And I saw Quilava again, and it was the Ken Sugimori alternate art once again coming into play. And I grabbed that Quilava, and I was like, I love this card. So Quilava then becomes like my favorite Pokemon and my new obsession. And once Crystal came out, I was like, I'm not making this mistake again. Cyndaquil. So yeah, that Johto was very exciting because there were so many changes, and we didn't have any information floating around easily. It was still like AOL chat rooms and things to that effect. And the rumors made everything fun, like playground stories. And I think Quilava perfectly serves as the emblem for that period in my Pokemon experience in my childhood.
What a story! I wondered if you were going down the route of so I started my game restarted my game immediately and
Almost.
chose
Ugh.
Liverpool, but but you did. You got your second chance with Crystal as well, and it's just so cool to know that's the story behind, of course, your logo online. It's the
Yeah.
memories we associate with these Pokemon. Um, that's Johto. I think you're right. Pre the internet, also Johto specifically, more so than Gen 1, I feel like, was full of things that would spark rumors, like the unknown. What are they doing
What
there?
are they doing? Yeah.
What's the connection with them? Celebi, we all knew it was there, but where was it in the game?
Uh-huh.
Things like that. It's it was just endlessly fascinating for the imagination at that age, I feel like. So really interesting story. Thanks so much for that, Carl.
Yeah.
I think we're going from there to follows on relatively naturally, I guess. You talked about Ruby and Sapphire before with Logan, but we're going from there to the DS and high school
Yeah.
and your first tournament.
Yeah. So it was 2004, something like that. Get into high school, and I have just decided that I will embrace social relationships again. Me and my buddy Logan spent the entire summer playing Ruby and Sapphire, probably Fire Red, Leaf Green. We went and picked up at some point between then and now. And when I got into high school, my buddy Logan decided he was going to go to a trade school instead. And I wanted to be part of the marching band. And his trade school did not have a marching band, even though I was interested in the trade, which was like computer science. So I choose the route of music because that's what my family is all about, and I'm actually like pretty decent at trumpet at this point in my life, and I've been first chair trumpet player for all of my bands. So I get into high school and I stick with band. I say goodbye to my buddy Logan, and now I'm once again at school with new people I don't know, and I don't know who likes Pokemon because this is like my favorite pastime is Pokemon. And once we get to 2006, 2007, a couple years down the road, I've been in band. I'm first chair trumpet, and socially in band, if you're not familiar, like the first chair trumpet is like king of the band, which is a far cry from being the bullied kid in middle school. I've definitely taken a different approach to how I approach life at this point. Like I've learned a lot, and this is all positive change. I hear that there's a new Pokemon game coming out for the Nintendo DS when I'm either a sophomore or a junior in high school. And once again, leaks and everything are still like pretty difficult to come across. Like just little clues, like the breadcrumbs aren't there yet. Um, just like very grainy pictures, maybe if you're lucky, of Japanese translations. It's pretty rough time. So once again, the mystical feeling of Johto has returned. I didn't get it for Gen 3 for some reason. It felt like Ruby and Sapphire popped up out of nowhere, and I was like, oh my gosh, new Pokemon. But Diamond and Pearl once again gives me that nostalgic feeling, and I have no people to share it with. And so using my new sturdy foundation on the social structure and band, I casually mentioned something about a new Pokemon game coming out to a friend that I've noticed has been playing WarioWare on their DS. And they say, "Oh, I have red version. I have Fire Red version with me right now," and they pop it out of the little Game Boy Advance slot on the DS. And I was like, "Oh, you like Pokemon?" And yeah, I love Pokemon. And then another person in the clarinet section, I love Pokemon. Like, are we gonna? Can we do like a thing on Saturday? And so we get together on Saturday and we play like Fire Red, Leaf Green, Emerald, like battles, and this is extremely exciting. And so now we have like this social investment in this band bubble about the new Diamond and Pearl games coming out, so much so that in my health class, do not follow my lead, kids at home, but I wrote tally marks on the wall in front of me in my health class marking down the days until Diamond and Pearl came out in the US. And nobody erased it. I started it maybe 100 days before the release, and the entire wall was just tick marks. Um, but I was keeping track there, and other people would rotate through that classroom, and they'd be like, I saw your thing. It says like DP at the top. And I'm like, yep, Diamond Pearl's coming out soon. So that was very exciting. We had a lot of people invested in it. And actually, this is the first time I ever used YouTube. There was somebody who was recording their Pearl version playthrough on YouTube, and I wish desperately that I could find this video. And I've asked friends, viewers, whatever, if they know what I'm talking about, and they can't find it. But they played through Pearl version like with a Turtwig, and every day during school, uh, once I had my driver's license, I would come home and I would watch the Pearl version playthrough of this guy with his Turtwig, just trying to like pick up breadcrumbs of like, what is this experience going to be? What is Diamond and Pearl going to be? And then we would share conversations about it uh, in the band hall and talk about Diamond and Pearl. And once they finally came out, we all got it together. In the US, they used to come out on Sundays at that point. And we all met up on a Sunday, and we learned about the underground and like digging up pieces of the wall and new Pokemon. And hey, on Fridays, there's a balloon guy over here. Like, that looks pretty cool. What's he about? He's nowhere else. So that was a very exciting part of my life. Rediscovering friends who liked Pokemon in a much greater capacity than when I was in elementary school or middle school, where it was just like one friend that I latched onto.
So exciting, isn't it? Now, what you don't know, Carl, is that in that high school, they've actually got a little plaque to you under that tally chart. It's still there. They put a sheet of perspex over the top of those tally marks and said, Kwikpanik inscribed these. So, yeah.
I love that.
So you sort of, I love how, in the same way that you were picking up breadcrumbs or trying to from this Pearl playthrough on YouTube, you were sort of leaving breadcrumbs for anyone to sort of pick up on. Are you also a Pokemon fan? Sort of thing. It's trying to decipher DP. Is that Diamond Pearl?
What is that?
It's so cool that you were. I love also that I'm Spartacus moment of everyone around you saying, "I play Pokemon."
Me too.
Exactly,
I can still hear it. It was so cathartic to have been like a closeted Pokemon player at this school for 2 years, and then it was like, no, we all love that still.
yeah, exactly. And now, of course, with the internet, we're flooded with people saying that they love Pokemon. I mean, you and I are examples of that for sure.
Yeah.
That's now. You said also playing your first tournament.
Yeah. So this is still the DS era, still Gen 4. There's a game called Pokemon Battle Revolution, and if you're into the VGC circuit now, you know that you just bring your Switch and you play your tournaments like that. But back in the day, you needed to have a DS and a copy of Diamond, Pearl, or eventually Platinum, which is where the story begins for tournaments. And it would hook up with a Wii, and you would do this battle in Battle Revolution. And before this, we had like Pokemon Stadium, right, where you could put a cartridge Gen 1 through 2 in, and there was kind of a competitive thing going on, I guess. It was mainly just like grassroots. But when Platinum comes out and we have access to Battle Revolution, there was a series of tournaments that were held, at least in the US, at GameStops. And they were little tournaments. There were like almost no rules as to which Pokemon you could bring, which was really exciting. But my buddy Logan comes back from this trade school, and he's still been playing Pokemon, and says, "Hey, there's a tournament at GameStop. Do you want to go play in it? It's like Saturday morning at 8 a.m. or something to that effect." So we all show up, and if you've never been to like a US GameStop, they're like tiny. Like, you're lucky if you can like make it sideways through any of the aisles. And so there's like 20 kids here with their DSs ready to play Pokemon Battle Revolution. And Logan and I had been, ever since Ruby and Sapphire, training up level 100 Pokemon with exciting move sets to like counter each other. And that didn't stop when we got to Diamond and Pearl. Like, I specifically trained my Pokemon to have better attack and HP because it was a physical attacker like Scizor, who became particularly good in Gen 4. And so we took our love for battling each other and our love for building admittedly some really obscure Pokemon sets, and we go to this tournament, and I'm running like Mismagius. We both run Mewtwo because there's no rules basically. Like Latios, we're running these Pokemon through the tournament, and it comes down to the top 4 out of the 20 people, and I'm in the top 4, and I lose to somebody who's running 3 Mewtwo's. I was like, what? And they all have different move sets, right? Like I knocked out the first one, but now the next one has Ice Beam and Salamence is gone. I'm like, what? How was I supposed to know he had Ice Beam? So I lose, but my buddy Logan battles him in the finals and he loses to Triple Mewtwo guy also. But that was our first taste of the competitive circuit, and we got like GameStop gift cards for our participation. I think I got like $10 and he got $20. And that's how it all started in terms of learning competitive Pokemon, and honing our skills against each other endlessly kind of drove us to find more competitions that we could do like that, which they had some at some malls, maybe Toys R Us for a while. And so we did that sporadically. It was nowhere near as consistent as how I play VGC now. But back then that was the start, was going and finding these little tournaments, running really obscure Pokemon. And I loved that era. I love Gen 4 so much. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Platinum, Diamond, Pearl was fantastic time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, well, you said there were no rules, so the 3 Mewtwo guy, I think he was onto something there, to be honest.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Lance in the Elite Four of Gen 2, right? 3 Dragonites.
3 Dragonites?
Okay, sure.
Cool. Oh, they know Barrier? Yeah. When did it learn Barrier? Because mine's level 100, and it never got that opportunity, Lance.
What have you been feeding these Dragonite lines? Okay, so from there, let's fill out the 3rd slot on your Dream Team car.
Sure. 3rd slot here is going to be Umbreon. Umbreon is one of my favorite Pokemon. Like Quilava and Umbreon are just like besties. Anytime I go to a tournament in VGC, I have like a Quilava plush and an Umbreon plush, or some iteration thereof. And Umbreon, specifically in Generation 3, was a Pokemon that was pretty hard to come by. You didn't have the day and night cycle anymore in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and Johto Pokemon in general were kind of difficult to find until Emerald version came out, and they had a Safari Zone extension that had a bunch of Johto Pokemon you could get, but it was still very difficult to find Umbreon. And when I was playing Silver version, I picked up Eevee from Bill, and I trained it at night. And I thought I was just waiting to find like a Firestone or a Thunderstone or a Waterstone, and I didn't know Umbreon existed. And I'm training Eevee like under the bed sheets at night with my Wormlight on my Game Boy Pocket, because I'm still playing it in black and white, even though it's Silver version. And I finish a battle, and it says, "What? Eevee's evolving." I'm like, "Whoa. I didn't use a stone on this, did I?" And it starts to evolve, and I'm like, this doesn't look like any of the 3 guys, because, the silhouette pops in and out in Gen 2. And it evolves into Umbreon, and I'm like instantly in love. I'm like, what is this? And, because I'm 10, I start using this guy as like an attacker, because all Pokemon have to attack. There's no defensive moves. So I start using Umbreon, and I missed it desperately when I got to Generation 3 and had no clue how to get it. Pokemon Coliseum comes out, which is a fantastic game if you've never played it. And the protagonist shows up on a motorcycle with an Espeon and an Umbreon in the sidecar. And once you beat that game, you can take that Umbreon and transfer it. So I transferred my Umbreon up to Diamond and Pearl and was battling with it with my buddy Logan. And it was a Pokemon that I transferred through all of the games I could for years and years. And it just struck me as like, it's a very pretty Pokemon, a very graceful Pokemon, it felt like. And it was my first introduction to another dimension of battling where it wasn't just 4 attacks. Because Diamond Pearl platinum, I was getting into these tournaments, and 4 attacks just wasn't cutting it. Like some of these guys were using swords dance, or some of them were using belly drum, and I was like, oh my, I'm getting creamed. And so I'm on the tournament circuit, at Toys R Us and things to that effect. And I'm like, I need to evolve my game. Like I've got to get a different team composition. And I look at my Umbreon, brought all the way from Coliseum, and I'm like, wait, I think this guy's got some pretty good stats. So I'm like looking at the stats, and it's got the perfect defensive stats. It's got like really good physical special defenses and good HP. It gets access to Moonlight, so once they finally whittle it down a bit, you can just heal it back up and then hit them with a Toxic. So that was like my first competitive strategy that I wanted to build, and it was with a Pokemon that blew my mind when I was 10 years old. I didn't even know it existed. So Umbreon kind of bridges the gap from like, what is battling, to okay, I want to be good at battling. And we were playing singles back then. And Umbreon was a good buddy that I brought up through a lot of games, and I always love to try and make it work. We might be able to do it right now. Who knows?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. It's so cool that you found that blend between a Pokemon that you have such a special connection to, and then making it work competitively. I think those are the ones that particularly stick in the mind, the ones that we have a particular kind of love for.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's those moments, isn't it, when a Pokemon evolves that you had no idea was even going to evolve at one point,
I love that
just
feeling.
stick in the mind. That's nostalgia with a capital N right there.
100%.
Just takes us right back. And it's really interesting. You were still playing your copy of Silver on the Game Boy Pocket. I mean, I know that when a shiny appears, you have the swirl of stars, but I mean, there's a chance if you miss that, then obviously the sprite would just look the same. So who knows?
I have a really good story about that Game Boy Pocket. This is a shiny Pokemon I need to find again.
Oh no! I don't
So
like the sound of this.
so as a kid, bedtime was like watch Dragon Ball Z with dad, and then go to bed at 10:30. Like after that, you're going to bed. And I was, you just watched like the craziest fight of your life, and you're all hopped up on adrenaline, and mom's like, go to bed. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with all these emotions? So I pick up my Game Boy Pocket one night before bed, and I've beaten the Elite Four, and I'm in Kanto, and just beat Misty in Cerulean City, and still playing on my Game Boy Pocket, which, if you don't know what a Game Boy Pocket is, it's just black and white. Like there's no colors whatsoever. There's no backlight either. So I have a light that points onto the screen that runs off of the battery called a worm light. And I'm under the sheets doing this as to not draw attention to my bedroom door. Volume is up, and I had headphones in, because there's like a headphone jack at the bottom of the Game Boy Pocket, and I've got the music cranked. And I'm like, this is great. And I go into Rock Tunnel, which is the tunnel that bridges the route to the east of Cerulean to Lavender Town. And I'm walking through the cave, uneventful and unprepared. I run into a Marowak, and it comes across the screen, and I, like, for that split second that nothing has happened on the screen yet, I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. I've never used a Marowak. I'm going to catch this. And it comes across the screen, goes, I was like, heart attack, because I have my headphones on. I'm supposed to be asleep. I'm under the covers trying to be stealthy. And I had only seen this one time before, and it was the Gyarados, which I knew from my sister's copy was supposed to be red instead of blue. I'm like, oh my gosh. Plus, Logan had found a shiny Bellsprout, and had it on his team. So I know this is a different color, and I know it's special. And so I go to my bag, and I have 2 Ultra Balls. I throw the first one, and I think it shook a couple of times. It was a long time ago, but it felt like it was close, and it broke out. And then I know that the last ball that I had, it didn't even shake once. And I fail the first ever shiny I found in the wild, a Marowak. I go back like years later, after I've become like a shiny hunting content creator, and I find out that Marowak only pops up 5% of the time. So to reclaim it is going to be a Herculean effort.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
So I did
that is
find one
painful.
shiny on the pocket. Yeah, it was not good.
Oh no! I tell you what, I think it almost would have been better if you didn't know what shinies were and you just
Uh-huh.
ran. But the fact that you
Yeah.
knew and you only had 2 Ultra Balls, then you learn it was a 5% encounter. Oh my goodness!
Luckily, I didn't learn that for like 15 or 16 years
Yeah.
that it was
Okay.
5%.
Yeah.
But it still hurt because I had always
Yeah.
planned to go back and go
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
again. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, whenever I have a spare century, I guess I'll try
Yeah.
this again.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you were, as you said, you need to go to bed, didn't know how to process those emotions. You play Pokemon, but then that
Uh-huh.
appears, and okay, you're up for the next like 3
Yep.
hours at least trying to deal with all that. Oh my goodness.
Oh
Wow.
gosh.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that, and I really hope that you can make it some kind of special anniversary stream or something where you try
Oh,
and
I think that'd be
reclaim that
great.
Marowak because it's got to be done. That would be a really seminal moment, I think.
It would be. It would be.
Wow. Okay. Well, from that heartbreak, let's move on
Yeah.
to. I believe now what we're going to talk about is university and Hot Gold and Soul Silver, and then also your graduation and into VGC.
Yeah. So at the start of uh college, I go to university to be a professional trumpet player.
Mm.
And I have like a pretty good ride in terms of financial support from the school. And so I have a little bit of extra free time because I'm in university. And once 2010 rolls around, so I guess that was my sophomore year, junior year, something like that. uh, Heart Gold Soul Silver is announced, and I have all of those emotions from Umbreon's evolution, discovering Quilava, failing shiny Marowak, pent up, and I have my DS, which I love so dearly. That era of Pokemon, between the physical special split change, making so many Pokemon more viable, like Sneasel, who is also Heart Gold Soul Silver, becomes usable because its ice and dark attacks can now be physical. I have so much excitement built up for competitive opportunities, and in terms of revisiting that nostalgia. And now I have a new group of friends in college. I maybe had one or two high school friends that came with me to this university because it was a private university, and neither of them are Pokemon people. So we have another situation where I don't know anybody who loves Pokemon, but Heart Gold Soul Silver is coming out, and at this point, I am playing Yu-Gi-Oh competitively. I did that for over a decade, where I was traveling to events and had some pretty good success. Made a lot of friends in the community. Two of them, Arthur and JP, um, also loved Pokemon, uh, and so they haven't played in a while. And when I say a while, I mean like probably Gold and Silver. And so I convinced them, old Pokemon fans, while we're on a tournament trip for Yu Gi Oh! To go pre order Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And so they do so. And we all pick it up. Once again, it happens on like a Sunday. So it's a weekend. It was released. And then Arthur, JP, and I played Heart Gold, Soul Silver all day long. Like, there's a follower Pokemon. Like, you get to see Johto in like totally new graphics, and we blow through the Johto region, and we get to like Kanto in over the course of like those 2 days, and we're like, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten, I haven't showered. Like, it was so much fun living through those. So there's once again like a new set of friends that I've made with Heart Gold Soul Silver, and those are my favorite games of all time. They came with a Pokewalker, so I started wearing my Pokewalker when I went on runs. It became integrated into my daily life more so then than it had ever been with like the Pokewalker. My Yu-Gi-Oh friends now coming to Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and us battling in Heart Gold Soul Silver in between rounds, and that was a big change to how I viewed Pokemon, because I had been focusing so much on battling, and now I'm going back to my roots and like enjoying the nostalgia of it more so. Not that I didn't enjoy Diamond Pearl, Platinum, but I was so focused on battling, I didn't stop and appreciate all of the little aspects of the games. And Heart Gold Soul Silver was the nice blend of, visiting that nostalgia, but also having battling opportunities. And yeah, it's just a point in my life that I remember the most vividly with my Pokemon experience.
Yeah, they are phenomenal games, and the way I thought that might be going is when don't know people who play Pokemon. You know what I do? I'm going to make a little tally on the wall. Just going to HGSS, see who's going to pick up on
See
that
if
clue.
anybody want to add a tick mark? No? Okay.
Just go up to them and say, "There's a plaque to me in my high school, guys," and you had
Yeah.
no idea. No idea.
I am
what
famous
this meant.
there.
Exactly. Okay, and then so you get through university, you discover VGC and also shiny hunting.
Yeah. I for Black and White, I didn't play as much because I had graduated. I'm working in pharmacy pretty regularly. I still play through the games and enjoy them, but now I'm starting to see some internet posts about tournaments for Black and White, and their game was on another level because I'd only ever played like the GameStop, Toys R Us tournaments. Played in my childhood house with Logan, played casually with our game teams with Heart Gold Soul Silver with JP and Arthur, and so now there's a completely new page that's about to turn, which is me studying VGC through Black and White 2. You see the a change in Pokemon design where you have like Amoonguss, which is obviously designed or does very well, if not obviously designed for it, at being a defensive pivot and has a very specific role on the team. And it serves as a support option for your other Pokemon to like set up their strategies. And this is making my brain like explode with fireworks. I'm like, this is fantastic. This is so exciting. There's 2 Pokemon on each side of the field. I'd only ever played singles up until this point. So I'm playing casually, but still breeding competitive Pokemon and just like ready to go. And watching like these, like reading tournament reports, because it was like a blog style, right? Like they would type in what their stats were, what their moves were, what their game plan was. So I did a ton of studying in Black and White. And I actually don't play in any competitive capacity in Black and White, just playing, with friends every once in a while when they come over. And it's actually X and Y, where I have now graduated from university. I have all of the information I've gotten from Black and White tournaments rambling around in my head, and I say, you know what, I'm going to go find tournaments again with X and Y. Logan has also graduated and moved back home from university, so he and I are back on the Pokemon train together. And X and Y is about to come out, and now it's JP, Arthur, Logan, some other Yu-Gi-Oh friends that I've discovered also love Pokemon. And we know X and Y is coming out, and this is the first time that the games are going to be released around the world at the same time. So even though there's a more prolific internet footprint, there are basically no breadcrumbs, and we have no clue what we're going to see when these games come out. So we go to my buddy's house, and it's him and his girlfriend that own this house. So it's completely devoid of parents and bedtimes and all this different stuff. So all of us, it's like a party of 10 people, go stay at this house. He has like a massive couch, and we're eating dinner, about to go to the midnight release for X and Y, and having a great time. We are like, okay, we'll go to bed at like 2 after we play a little bit of X and Y, and then we'll go have breakfast tomorrow morning, etc. Well, we go pick up X and Y, and this is the first foray into 3D Pokemon. And I think we all underestimated how much it would engage us between, wonder trading and the shinies become more common. The shiny odds are different in this game, and completely changed breeding mechanics for preparing competitive Pokemon. It's crazy how many quality of life things change for the competitive player here. And we end up playing through the entire weekend. I don't know when I slept, if I slept, if I ate, if I showered, I have no clue. But all of us, this huge friend group, is now playing X and Y, and most of us start to look for tournaments. Because Logan and I are talking about it all the time. Like, yeah, we used to go play in tournaments back in Platinum, and so JP, Alex, myself, just a couple of friends from Yu-Gi-Oh, and Logan find that there's a tournament in Corpus Christi, which for context is about 2.5 hours drive south of us, and it's the closest tournament. And so we drive down there and we play in our first tournament and we get obliterated. These guys have been playing obviously through Black and White, and we have not. And we make some friends. One of which I actually made day 2 with, and it was his first day 2 also at Indianapolis, which was totally random. We hadn't talked much before then. But we find this tournament place, 2.5 hours drive, and now we've made it like an every other weekend situation where we take turns driving down, trying out new teams. We have a text message chat that's like, what do you think about Tyranitar? And it's like, oh, well, yeah, I got rock slide flinched to death under Trick Room with Tyranitar last weekend. You should try it. What do you think about Garchomp with Sandvale versus Rough Skin? So now we have like this large group that is getting into VGC, and I have like this great support system of people from all different parts of my life coming together and all getting excited about Pokemon again. And that's when VGC and competitive battling took another level up in terms of how my mindset towards getting prepared for these tournaments went.
It's great that you're all able to reconnect, rekindle that love. I mean, I know that for you the love was always there, but for everyone else, just everyone suddenly, the whole gang's back together, sort of thing. And you have more people involved in this community than you ever had before, I guess, and all back sort of in a time of life where you can put more into it, I suppose. That's it's fantastic to hear. And first tournament, of course, it's not going to go your way, but then we learn from that, don't we? And what we want to learn now is your 4th Pokemon on your dream team. So who's going to join Growlithe, Anquilava, and Umbreon?
Yeah, so the 4th one here is it has something to do with VGC and my first ever success at this tournament. And it was actually the PC was my first tournament I ever won. I kept losing at locals, but I won a PC using Liepard. And Liepard is the next Pokemon on the team. And I loved Liepard so much because it outsped Meowstic, which was so popular. It had a faster fake out. It had access to stab dark moves. So like same type of attack bonus is applied for dark moves that it uses. It's got like middling defenses. So you just throw a Focus Ash on it. But this team, I loved so dearly. I had Liepard and then I had Mega Manectric. And so I was cycling fake outs with Liepard by using U-turn and then cycling Volt Switch Intimidates with Mega Manectric into bulkier stuff in the back like Amoonguss. And that was my first real team. And it was so cathartic to win with something, previous locals I had just like copied whoever beat me. Like, okay, I need Garchomp, I need Tyranitar, I need Salamence. And Salamence was on this team, but it had Hydro Pump, which makes it different. And it was really cool to make a meta call, which was like Meowstic keeps just like his fake out is faster than what I've got going, and use a Pokemon that nobody else had appreciated at all. Most of the time I came into battles and people were like, what does Liepard do? But it got like priority Thunder Wave, which was really cool. It got the fake out, of course. It got Foul Play, which was really a big deal. So Liepard gave me my first PC win alongside Mega Manectric, but Liepard for sure is the next Pokemon there.
Very interesting, very interesting. I know you're not building a competitive team, and it's a good thing too, because you've got 2 fire types, 2 dark types.
I definitely realized that I like fire and dark types.
Right.
Listen, Incineroar haters. It's in my genes. I can't help it. I'm even wearing red and black right
I was
now.
Just about to say, it's not even in your genes, it's also on your shirt.
Oh, I didn't plan this at all. But I might be a dark fire type gym leader in the next generation of Pokemon.
Not even just that, but your chair as well. That's black and red.
I promise it's not intentional.
This is the thing. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lipod joins the team, and then we're going from there, I believe, to discovering shiny hunting, and then taking a little break from the competition as well.
Yeah. So it's actually because of VGC that I got into shiny hunting, which I've learned from my various friend circles. It's usually the opposite: is you're doing just something very casual, looking for different color Pokemon, and then you're like, I want to do something with them. Let's battle. But I was at a tournament at that local, and my opponent had a shiny Mawile, and I never thought about shiny hunting my team at this point. And I had watched videos. That same person who had that Pearl version video with Turtwig also had a video of them using the Poke Radar for the first time, and they found a shiny Ponyta. I would love to do that hunt on my own console one day, just because that was my first introduction to like hunting for shiny Pokemon. But this guy at the tournament had a shiny Mawile, and it just really struck me that his Mega Mawile, like his ace on the team, was shiny, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to shiny hunt my favorite Pokemon on my team. And so I went home after one of those tournaments, and I take a prankster Purloin, put it in the daycare, and I'm like, all right, we're just gonna go until this thing is dark blue, and there's only like a 60% chance that it passes on the hidden ability, and you couldn't change abilities back in Gen 6. So I'm like, fingers crossed it's prankster because it's unusable if it's limber. And so I hatch eggs for 29 days straight. I'm like going to work, going to the gym, and then coming home, and for the rest of the evening I'm just hatching eggs. And 29 days later, I hatch shiny Purloin, and the IVs were all perfect. Like all of its stats were perfect, HP through special defense, and we get to speed. The one that matters the most because it outspeeds Meowstic, and it's suboptimal. So it's not quite fast enough. It's the right nature, it's the right ability, it's shiny. So this just becomes like my buddy when I'm walking through the Kalos region and I'm trying to go catch a new Pokemon or training or whatever. I'm just like, well, at least you're pretty. Like, come on, let's go, and we'll go on our next adventure. And yeah, that was kind of my approach to my first shiny hunt. And I actually didn't shiny hunt again for a while. We get into Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire format now after X and Y, and primals. We get to the point where everybody's running like Primal Kyogre and Mega Rayquaza, and Smeargle is everywhere. This Pokemon is not very fun to play against at this point in history, because there's an 80% chance that each of your slots just goes to sleep turn one. And I go to an Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire tournament, my first ever regional, actually, in Orlando, and I have 4 wins with Mega Sceptile. And the tournaments aren't that long at this point because the attendance is pretty low still. I go into round 5, and I play against Wolf Glick. And I know the name, but I don't know who he is. Like I just know I've seen his name on like these tournament reports and things. And he has Dialga, and he has Landorus Therian form, who is very, very good at this point in history. And I lead because this is closed team sheet, right? Right now we have open team sheet. I know all your moves. I know your Terra type and your held item ability, etc. And I play against this guy, and I lead this guy, Wolf. I play against Wolf, this guy, and he sends out his Pokemon, and I'm like, well, yeah, Landorus likes to use Earthquake. It's normally next to like a Cresselia, or they protect the other slot. So I'm planning out my first turn accordingly, and he doesn't protect, and I'm, oh my gosh, this is great. Like I made my call right. I had doubled into Dialga because I didn't want him to set up like Trick Room or whatever my idea was, and he uses Earthquake and then procs Telepathy on Dialga, which was only available through a Korean distribution, and I lose my grip on the tournament at this point because I got just mollywopped. It felt like I didn't know how to play Pokemon, and so I lose this regional run after getting 4 wins, and I lose the rest of them, and I don't get to play in the top cut. So at this point, I decided to take a break, and I met my wife during my break. It was actually my last day of university, um, and she plays piano. She is a conservatory pianist. Like we have a grand piano downstairs because that's her instrument. So both very serious musicians. And during my entire uh, tournament run from like 2014 to probably like 2015 with like XY and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, she's being very supportive, and she even hatched Bagon eggs for me so I could get a one with 6 perfect stats with Hydro Pump for my tournament. So she's been tremendously supportive, and I just decided at this point, like, I'm going to take a break, and my girlfriend and I are just going to do a bunch of stuff together on weekends because I'd been spending so many weekends at tournaments and prepping during the week. So I just take a break to hang out with my girlfriend for a while. And in 2016, she and I get married, and we go to Europe, and we're on like a cruise, and we do all these really fun things. And we get to 2017. There's a new game out, Sun and Moon version. We're in Generation 7, and I just play casually. Like I just want to have fun. My wife lived several years in Hawaii, and it's based on, Alola is basically Hawaii in the Pokemon region, in the Pokemon world, and so she plays Moon version. She plays our first ever Pokemon game all the way through with me while I play Sun version, and so I'm still playing Pokemon during this break. I'm still enjoying myself. Um, my career changes. I get like another promotion, and everything feels very solid. Like we've got all our ducks in a row. We got married. We're renting a house. Everything feels great, and it feels like I can finally relax. And that's when I picked up streaming. Actually, is at the end of that little break period. So took a break from competitive, got to step back. It's probably Smeargle's fault, I just want to say, and got to enjoy the casual experience again. I go through these peaks and troughs of, all right, we got to win, and then right, I love this franchise, and I just want to kind of vibe out with my favorite characters, and then all right, we got to win, and that's like a pretty common reiteration that happens throughout my journey with Pokemon. But my wife has always been incredibly supportive, especially during the VGC circuit that I've been on the past 15, 16 months. And her playing Sun and Moon with me on the couch when we were just renting this house in the middle of nowhere. It was just like a really formative, great memory that I latch onto.
Yeah. Not only that, but hatching Bagon eggs for you as well, in order to get those 6 perfects. 6 perfect stats. That's true love right there.
Yep. It really is
a wonderful thing. And also, I love how movie trailer this is becoming. Kyle had it all. He had the wife.
What more could he want?
What he didn't have was the love of Pokemon.
Yeah.
But then it came right back. I mean, there was a lot to unpack there, and I think I wonder if that person who you fought against in that tournament, who had the shiny Mawile, knew the impact that it would have on you. So shout out to whoever that person was.
Yeah.
Because it's that really set off a career path. And I also love how the shiny Purloin hatched 29 days later. We've got that horror film 28 days later, and
29 days. Yep.
It wasn't quite a horror movie, but it did have the not so great speed stamps. So,
yep.
Still nightmares, just of a different kind. But okay, so now let's see who's going to join Growlithe, Anquilava, and Umbreon, and Lipod. So is it going to be another fire dart type? Let's find out.
Litten.
Oh,
okay. I didn't think about this. It's just cats and dogs. It's all just cats and dogs, and they're fire or dark. And one of them's about to be fire dark. I'm sorry. Listen, I know I let everybody down.
That's fascinating. It's really fascinating. Were you aware when you were making these picks? Were you aware of this theme, or was it only when you looked back?
I was.
Oh, hang on a second. Oh, you were. Okay.
Yeah. So when I was making the team, I wanted to take it to heart because the competitor in me was like, there has to be type synergy. There has to be balance. I want the fire, water, grass core. And I'm like, but I'm going to be lying to him if I'm like, I just really like, you know, Amoongus. Like, that's not fun, even though I think he's a cute guy.
Yeah. I love this
uh,
angel and devil on your shoulders saying, do it.
do it. So it's actually Litten, and it ties into this part of the story pretty well because I have just played Sun and Moon with my wife, and we're just doing our own thing. I have lots of free time, besides having like a 9 to 5 and a wife and a workout routine that I like to keep. In the evenings, I have like a couple of hours. This is my favorite thing, is like taking a Pokemon that you really care about, something that has a story, and then doing well with it and taking it to competition and honing it and just being the best player with that Pokemon is so cool. I love that, especially when it's not like one of the top 10, right? And I think a lot of casual Pokemon enjoyers who, you know, take a peek into the Pokemon world, they love that they just saw Lugia take a win on Indianapolis Regional Stream. That is so cool. I absolutely love that. And so I decide that I want to go on to Twitch, and I decide I'm going to stream Pokemon. And before I go into it, I'm like, I have to do something different. Like, what do I have to offer? And this is something that anybody who's creating content should definitely consider before they go into it. Do not go into it expecting wild, immediate success if you're just a copy paste of somebody else who's doing that same exact thing. You have to bring something different to the table. And that something different that I brought to the table, I noticed that nobody was shiny hunting their teams. Like, they might have one shiny on their team or two shinies on their team, but there weren't really people out there documenting like a journey to build a VGC team with shiny Pokemon. So I decide I'm going to go live with Ultra Sun, and I am going to complete the Pokedex and get a shiny charm, and we're going to breed for competitive Pokemon, and I'm going to have an all shiny team for the online competitions that were going on, and I'm going to stream the online competitions. And the first shiny hunt that I was going to do was Litten, because Incineroar was so good, and it still is so good. So that was like a logical first choice. And fun fact, when I was trying to complete the Pokedex, I was trying to catch a Bagon for my Pokedex, and I ran into a shiny Hawlucha, just a full odds random shiny Hawlucha. That clip still lives today, actually. So my first ever shiny encounter in the wild since that Marowak I failed is actually recorded for history, which is really cool. So I go into a hunt for a Litten in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. I'm doing like shiny charm, Masuda method, all that fun stuff to make it as likely as possible that I'm going to find my shiny. I hatch like 700 eggs, and the chances are like 1 in 500 that you're going to get the shiny. And so I'm overdue and getting a little grumpy about it because it's my first shiny hunt and I don't have patience yet. And I finally hatch it, and all of chat, I probably had like 20 concurrent viewers at this point. All of chat loses their mind because this cat has been plaguing us for so long, and we're all excited. We look at the stats. It has Blaze, and there is no ability patch in this game. So I have to hunt this Pokemon again. And now the whole community is like, give us the cat. Like, everybody's so invested in it. And so Litten marks a pretty big milestone in my journey as a content creator and as a shiny hunter, because I had so many people in the community who I did not know invested in my success in this shiny hunt. And he still lives as like a channel meme to this day. And I still have him in my, actually the Incineroar that I used for Orlando regionals was actually that shiny Litten that I hatched on stream. So he's come with me. He got me to 6-3, so thank you for that, shiny Litten. But he got me points. That means a lot.
Cool. At least your connection with Incineroar is more than just it's really good. At least there's a story behind it.
It helps.
Yeah. Everyone who's unfamiliar, not only is Litten a fire type Pokemon, but it's fully evolved form Incineroar is a fire and dark type Pokemon, so really continuing that theme.
It was an accident, I promise.
Yeah. No, that it's the important thing is the story behind it, and that is quite a story. And I also wonder if I imagine that after that point, yes, there was an initial frustration of not having the Litten with the correct ability. Of course, Blaze is the more common ability that Litten and Incineroar can have, and Intimidate is the hidden one that is far more useful in competitive Pokemon. But given there was that first one that didn't have the right ability, I wouldn't be surprised if that ultimately helped you as a content creator and a streamer, right? Because it ultimately, hopefully, gets people more invested in that journey.
100%. Yeah. Katza, who was the first one who who launched all of my shiny hunting woes. Yeah, he was an integral part to getting noticed, because while it's fun to watch somebody find a shiny, I've been watching shiny content for ages, right? It's exciting to see it. It's, as a viewer, as an enjoyer of a story, it's not fun to listen to a story that's like, well, Frodo got the one ring and then he walked to the volcano and he threw it in, happy ending. It's like, no, I want to learn. I want all of the stuff in the middle. Like, give me the turmoil. Give me like who's the bad guy. I need an antagonist for this story to be really exciting. So yeah, it definitely helped with the Kwikpanik lore building, to have something other than like, yeah, it's a guy who found a shiny.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, before we discover what your final Pokemon is, I believe now we're just going to, well, we're getting into the present, really, I guess. You're streaming shiny hunting for your VGC team members and then starting today's circuit, let's say.
Yeah. So Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon was my jumping off point, building shiny teams and then competing and doing like, okay. My win-loss ratio was positive. Like, that's what matters, right? And we get into Sword and Shield, which is, there are more changes that happen in this format. And so this is a totally new beast to tackle, because the things we knew, there's no longer mega Pokemon. There's like Dynamax, and there's new mechanics to learn. Like, you can't heat crash a Dynamax Pokemon, like, as a fun little thing to learn on stream. So I learn how to play Sword and Shield VGC on stream. I'm learning with my audience now, and we had a lot of fun using obscure Pokemon. You got to use that shiny Halucha, because Max Airstream, Max Knuckle, and early Sword and Shield was a really good combination to have. And Sword and Shield was it was a little bit of a break from looking for shiny Pokemon, and I'm just enjoying learning the format. And then we get DLC. We get Isle of Armor, we get Crown Tundra, and in the Crown Tundra, I have already set the precedent in Isle of Armor that I would like to look for some different colored Pokemon for my team. It makes the team members feel more integral, with each of them having a story. And so I decided I'm going to like shiny hunt a full team for Sword and Shield now, just like I did for Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. But at this point, I've been bitten by the full odds bug. I get a lot of cathartic feeling from shiny hunting a Pokemon the old-fashioned way, not using a shiny charm, not using any methods or anything to that effect. Just really going back to that silver version Marowak, and I want to experience that again, popping up out of the blue. And so I decide I'm going to shiny hunt for Regigigas, because neutralizing gas is a new ability in this generation with Wheezing, and I want to shiny hunt a Wheezing. And before you get to Regigigas in Sword and Shield DLC, you have to go catch Registeel, Regirock, Regice, and then you have to have Regidrago, Regieleki, and then you can summon Regigigas. So I go into catch Registeel and I say, you know what? I want a green one. So I start streaming and I say, you know what? We're going to shiny hunt all the Regis, and then we're going to shiny hunt the Regigigas for my team. And things start off pretty nicely. It's like maybe 4 or 5 streams of hunting, and I get the Registeel at like 1600 resets. And I'm so excited. I'm like, nice, this is going well. Perfect. Little did I know, I get to Regirock, and this is a Pokemon that I have no feelings towards whatsoever. It was just like, yeah, I know who the Reggies are. I learned Braille when I was 12, so I could find him. But that's it. And I go into the Regirock hunt, and we hit 1,600 encounters. Okay, this one's taking longer than Registeel. We hit like 2,000, 4,000. I'm like, are we sure this can be shiny? Like, what's going on here? And I get to the point where I'm over odds. I'm overdue for this Regirock, and I bust out another game to hunt alongside it because at this point I have done that puzzle for Regirock so many times I can do it with one hand with my Pro controller. So I bust out my old 3DS and I put in a copy of Soul Silver version rather, and decide I am going to start a new save file, and I'm just going to see, like, can I get a shiny in Heart Gold Soul Silver first, or will the Regirock appear? And this is a dangerous path because I find Chikorita. Regirock is at like 15,000 resets at this point, and Chikorita pops up in like 40 resets, and it was so exciting because Heart Gold Soul Silver is my favorite game. And I say, I'm gonna make a shiny badge quest out of this. Every time I'm about to get a badge, I will have to walk into that gym with one new shiny. Regirock is still going on the side. I decide I want to Mareep. Mareep would be so good for Falkner because he's got flying types, and I just want to use like a little pink sheep. And I find the Mareep. Regirock is at like 19,000 encounters. I'm like, okay, I found two really rare shiny Pokemon before the Regirock. This is fun. And then I decide that I'm going to go for Wooper now because I love Quagsire. You and I talked about Quagsire the other day. And so I go in and I find another shiny Mareep while looking for Wooper, and Regirock is sitting there at 20K. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Like, come on, please. So I have found 3 Heart Gold Soul Silver shinies before I have found my shiny Regirock. Regirock finally pops up in February. After like 4 months of hunting it on stream. Everybody is invested. Everybody's heard about me going to 20,000 encounters. And everybody's like, this is the worst shiny hunter in the world. Let's go watch. And so I finally find it and decide that I'm going to get it to Master Ball on the ladder. Like, he needs a ribbon. We got to commemorate this. We got to make special jackets. Like, we got to do everything Regirock now, because this guy has taken me from like 20 concurrent viewers to like 90, 100 on stream, because everybody's like, we got to watch this guy. Oh my gosh. And I now love Regirock and I love all of the Reggies. So the story about the Reggies is pretty instrumental in my success as a content creator, becoming a Twitch partner, etc. Because the next Reggie on the list is Regice, and I find it at 3,300 encounters, and the game crashes before it saves because there is an update, and I am heartbroken. And everybody who was there for the Regirock story and more are there, and they see this and they're like, he is the worst shiny hunter. What's happening? And so I immediately, after I figure out what's wrong, I reinstall my game, etc. I just start doing encounters, and everybody in the community is like, "Hey, why don't you take a break, buddy? Like, you look tired." And I'm like, "Nope, we're gonna get this." So I push through. I get my second shiny Regice. I get Regidrago under like 600 encounters. I get Regieleki, and then I get Regigigas. And then Regigigas and the Weezing that I shiny hunted take me to Master Ball tier. I participate in some creator tournaments, and everybody's like, dude, where'd you get these shinies? Like, how long did that take? So people are interested now because all my teams are like all shiny Pokemon. And that becomes my thing. Like, you're the VGC guy whose team is filled with these Pokemon that have these rich stories. Like, you took Regirock to a creator tournament, and everybody who sees the Regirock is like, is that the one? Is that the guy? That's the guy, isn't it? And I'm like, yes, he's the guy. He's the guy. And that was really fun. And that was the moment where I started to feel like I was welcome on the internet in 2 different worlds, between other VGC creators and the shiny hunting community, which sometimes there can be like a pretty stark contrast between those two pieces of the community, because we have completely different goals, and both of those things take a considerable amount of time between training up your Pokemon, learning what move sets you want, learning where you want your stat points, learning what moves you need, and then like adding another layer on top is like, now I want it to be shiny. That's just a lot to do, and nobody else was doing it because they're in their right minds. And I decided like this is going to be my thing, and I love it so much. So I I get to showcase my shiny Pokemon in VGC. I'm having a great time. And then Wolf, once again, old rival, ruined my tournament before. He has like a Twitch Rivals thing, and I get invited to that as like, yeah, you're a shiny hunter, like you can also create content. And I think a lot of the people who were in this tournament were VGC creators, and maybe I don't know, one or two of them knew who I was. They're like, you're the Reggie Rock guy, right? um and I actually do really well. I make it all the way. I think I made like 11th place out of all those creators in the Scarlet Violet Twitch Rivals tournament. So then I start to meet more VGC creators, and they're like, you should go to a regional. And I'm like, oh, last time I went to a regional. And so I say yes. I go to San Diego regionals, and it's my first tournament for anything in a long time, and it doesn't go the way I want. I didn't prep the right way, but it was a learning experience. I actually stayed with a shiny hunting friend. We shiny hunted the whole weekend. I learned a lot about VGC. So the first regional was a good experience. The next one is Orlando, and Orlando had 10 rounds, I want to say, in 2023. And I went in with a team that was like very like, it's exactly what you expect. It had like Fluttermane, it had Iron Bundle, it had Iron Hands, and I shiny hunted all of them. Meowscarada was on the team, I believe, and I played all the way through the tournament, and I got to round 10, and I had 2 losses, and in order to make day 2, you need to have 2 or fewer losses. And so I'm on the bubble. I'm in game 3 playing against Lorcy, who is a very accomplished VGC player, and I've been out of the VGC competitive loop since Oris, so I don't know who I'm playing against, which I think is a benefit, because I don't get inside my head. And he comes down to game 3, and I had a Focus Sash on my Iron Bundle. He has a Fluttermane on his side of the field. I know that his Fluttermane outspeeds mine because of our previous games in my notes. So I just need to land an Icy Wind on this Fluttermane, and I just Dazzling Gleam to victory. And so my Iron Bundle's full health. Fluttermane is going to die to a Shadow Ball. His Iron Bundle has like 1 HP. And then his Fluttermane, I just need to outspeed it, and I can chunk the rest of the damage. And the end game comes down, and I Icy Wind and protect my Fluttermane. Miss. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty rare. Was that like 1 in 400 chance? That's okay. I have a Focus Sash. We take those. And next turn, Icy Wind hits the Iron Bundle, misses the Fluttermane, and the Fluttermane takes out the rest of my team. So I had like a 1 in 8,000 loss. But this is only my second regional, and my wife is like, how many wins did you had? Like, it was like 6 or 7 wins. I don't remember the number of rounds, but it was like 6 or 7 wins. Like, you lost to this guy who is super accomplished. I don't know if you would know that. I'm like, no, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. And so she starts supporting me to going to events regularly. And I go to Charlotte. I go to Knoxville. I probably went to like 8 regionals in a row last year. And I go 6-3 like 4 times. And I'm just so close. But I have the benefit of like my community and the friends that I met through like Twitch Rivals, and the people that I met at the regionals who didn't know I was a content creator at all because I'm like a shiny hunter, right? I met Scott Iwafuji at one of the events, and he has been so, I cannot underline enough how supportive he's been, between looking at my team ideas and testing them for me and bringing back notes. And then Stefan Mott, who I met at NAIC, he also, I met him. I didn't know about his accomplishments. Both of these guys are like great players with with the merits for it. And I met them outside of that, and they just became like some of my best friends on the VGC circuit. And they, along with my wife's support and my community's support, just kept pushing me like, keep going, you've got this, you've got this. And it finally all came to a head at Indianapolis last week, where I took that shiny Regieleki and a team of 5 other guys that I really liked using. And with some feedback from Stefan Mott and Rosemary Kelly, who are also great friends in the community who have been supportive on my VGC journey, I was able to take my first day 2. And that was my biggest goal, was to make day 2 with at least 1 or 2 guys on my team that I felt were my Pokemon in terms of like creation of the strategy. So it was 15, 16 months, 6 threes among those, and then finally breaking through that bubble and making day 2 with a Pokemon that had a story finally happened. And I was incredibly excited to have done it, and I couldn't thank those people that I mentioned enough for all their support through it, because you can go 6-3 at one tournament and just say, you know what, that was too much for my heart. But I kept coming back from tournaments at 6-3 and saying, I need to quit. I can't, man. I'm just not there yet. But Scott, Stefan, my wife, they're all like, just, you can do it. Go. So that I was very lucky to have the support system I did to, and just finally have some sort of crowning achievement to my journey so far.
Well, I mean, you talk about the story of the Pokemon on your team, but that's quite a story you've presented us with as well. I feel like this episode could be a series in itself. It's been a real journey, and it all makes sense now. I now know why Regirock is such a staple of your branding online. And it's what a place you're in now. You've realized that your niche is someone who shiny hunts for a competitive team, and now you're proving your worth on both fronts. You've made that day to Indianapolis, and that is no mean feat. So incredibly inspiring stuff as well, and I hope all of you watching and listening are feeling inspired. Now I want you to inspire us with your 6th Pokemon on your team. So who's the final one? Who's going to be joining Quilava and your Umbreon and your Lipard and Litten and your Growlithe?
Good news. It's not fire and it's not dark.
But at this point, I kind of want it to be, to be honest. Just to complete the story.
No, it is Regieleki. Because I feel like this was a huge milestone. Because I proved to myself what I kept telling myself I couldn't do, which was set myself above a lot of players that also probably want it just as bad as I do, if not more. Probably not more. I want it really bad. And he was instrumental in it. That Regieleki, it carried all of my efforts with him, and it really was nice going into this tournament, because one of my things is I've been so in the weeds of Pokemon for so long that I know what every Pokemon can do, basically. Like, yeah, I'll get surprised by a move every once in a while, but like, I know this guy's faster than this guy. I know this guy's got better physical defense than special defense. I know specifically that my Regieleki outspeeds Shadow Rider Calyrex and Scarfed Urshifu with minimal speed investment. So I know that I can dump everything into special attack and still outspeed these things and pick up surprise KOs, especially with the help of the Chiyu that was on my team. And using Regieleki was definitely instrumental in my victory, not only from a mental standpoint with having all of those good memories baked into just seeing him on the field, but also using my intimate knowledge of less popular Pokemon. Regieleki was pretty popular in Sword and Shield, but almost zero use in Scarlet Violet, other than one earlier on in the format. So it was really cathartic to use a guy that nobody was really prepared for, that had the good memories, and of course was a shiny Pokemon for me. So that's why he rounds out the team.
If you're unfamiliar with Regieleki, then it's the fastest Pokemon ever, basically.
Yeah, 200 base speed. It's good. It's good.
And it's again, I think what this show is all about is showing the breadth of what Pokemon has to offer, and the fact that every Pokemon on, it sounds like any team that you bring to a competition has that story behind it, and such a journey you've been on with them. So thank you so much for that, Kyle. And speaking of journey, it's now time. Now we've reached the end of this part of the journey, at least, to ask you if you could choose one of these Pokemon to be your partner Pokemon, which would it be?
So this one was really difficult. I thought about it a lot, but I think it would definitely be Umbreon because it was the first. It was the first step in becoming a better competitive player. It was the first time I said I need to step up my game. But also, it's like so cute. Like it's just a little guy, and it could. I have 4 dogs that I've rescued. That my wife and I take care of, and it's got like all of the components of like competitive Pokemon. It reminds me of our first rescue dog, who's a black lab. And it's also my favorite shiny Pokemon. Like those gold rings turn blue. So I think that's really design wise where it speaks to me, but also the defensive stats. Not to toot my own horn, I'll be the last one to do that, but I think a lot of my success was because of my resilience. Because I could have given up on the shiny hunting, I could have given up on the streaming, I could have given up on the competitive circuit several times because I'm very lucky to be where I'm at now, but I would not have been if I gave up when I felt like it was too much. Several times between, shiny hunting can be really difficult. You have to persevere. Um, VGC circuit is definitely something that you have to push through. Very few people see success at their first tournament. And Umbreon is the perfect culmination of my favorite shiny, that nostalgia for the Johto region, my first step into upping my game, the other aspects of my life, like building a life with my wife and rescuing those dogs. And I think it perfectly embodies all of those things all in one.
Mm. You say you're the last person to toot your own horn, but you are a trumpet player, so I mean, you could probably do it quite
I
well.
could. I have a trumpet right here.
If you wanted to. I really thought you'd be going with Quilava though, just because it's.
He's my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah, but I can see why Umbreon has a particular relevance for this kind of show, I guess. And,
Yeah.
I guess for where you are now, bridging that
Yeah.
gap between shiny hunting and competitive play. Okay, very interesting. And now, if you were a Pokemon, Kyle, what do you think you'd be?
This one was also a hard one. But I think that in terms of just like personality wise, based on what we see from like the show and everything like that, I think very much that I would like to be Bulbasaur. Uh, to match perfectly. Not that it's necessary that's who I want to be, but I think like Ash's Bulbasaur specifically is kind of me, because most of the time he's like just calm, cool, collected, right? But like when the going gets tough, he's like, "No, I can do this." Like Bulbasaur in one of the episodes is about to evolve. He's like, "No, I'm very sure of the path that I'm on, and this does not meet with my goals. I do not want to do this. I am committed to my path." And I think having that kind of dichotomy kind of perfectly summarizes the two different Kyles that you can find, which is like the very just chillax, like, yeah, whatever, man, that's fine, which is Bulbasaur when there's no danger. But like when the going gets tough, like he's the tough that gets going. And I feel very much that when things get difficult, that's when I feel most inspired to work hardest. And he's also like an unexpected like powerhouse, which is like most people when I came into VGC were like, he's a shiny hunter. Like, don't take him seriously. But I was like, oh, hold on, you don't know what I've been cooking since I was like 8. All right.
Yeah.
So I think Bulbasaur's personality, specifically Ash's Ash's Bulbasaur's personality, fits me best.
That's a very well thought out answer. That sounds pretty accurate to me. So appreciate the thought you put into that. But what do you think, everyone watching and listening? Do you agree? Do you think that Kyle will be Ash's Bulbasaur? Based on everything we've heard about Kyle today, do you think there could be a Pokemon he suits better? What do you reckon?
Ooh.
Let us know in the comments. And Speaking of the community, it's time for some questions for you, Kyle, from that very community. So I posted online, as I always do, asking for questions from you all for Kyle. Kyle doesn't know which ones I've chosen, so let's see what he has to say about them. And I apologize as ever if I mispronounce any of your names or handles. Now, I had a question for my last guest, Amy Wosley, from this person, KCK PKMN, but asked fantastic questions. So thank you very much for your commitment to the show. As a busy father with a full-time career outside of Pokemon, what is the biggest life balancing challenge and how do you overcome it?
Yeah, time is like the one thing that you cannot harvest more of. You can't purchase more of. So utilizing my time appropriately is paramount. I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago who's also a father, and he commiserated. He actually made day 2 for the first time with me at Indianapolis, and has 2 kids. So we've been on a pretty similar journey, and the reason that we're able to do it is we don't take any piece of time for granted that we have, whether it's with our kids, with our wife, or free time. Instead of, we were talking about like doom scrolling on your phone is like pretty attractive, but instead you could be like planning out your next VGC team, getting in some shiny hunting encounters. So every piece of downtime I have has a dual purpose. If I am lifting weights, I lift weights 5 or 6 days out of the week, go for a run, and I'm listening to either like the VGC stream. I'll play it back and listen to some matches, listen to the commentators, pick up on some team building components while I'm lifting weights. So dual purposing that. Also, I lift weights during my lunch break at work. So I am very lucky to be able to work from home. So that means I can eat while I'm checking emails in the morning, right? Or eat while I'm answering or listening to a call. So everything has kind of a focus on time. So, for example, I wake up in the morning, I get my kids ready, I pack their lunches, etc. I try to leave any distractions upstairs. Cell phone is a really good distraction. Work laptop. So leave all that. Focus on my kids, getting them out the door, getting them fed, getting my wife out the door. And after that, then I sit down, focus on my work for a little bit. If I have downtime, I'm listening to something to help me with team building. Um, so dual purposing your time, I think, is great if you have the opportunity to do so. But also having a generic plan for how the day goes with all of your key pieces in place and sticking to it is paramount. It's very easy to say, I'm too tired to lift weights today. I'm too tired to work on my team, or I'm burnt out from it, and just like use that time for nothing. I think is dangerous, and I've fallen into that trap for a while. So optimizing time, I think, is the best advice that I have, and making sure that you're there in the moment as much as possible, especially when you have a family. Being focused and keep yourself from being distracted by things that are not enriching, like doom scrolling on social media.
Yeah, that's very wise advice indeed. I think, yeah, before you attempt to discover just how much time you can create for yourself in a day, it's kind of hard to fathom. But I think that's really it's really wise words there. Also important, of course, to take breaks where you're able to, and I think in order to keep up such a productive regime, you also have to have appropriate time to switch off as well, I suppose.
100%.
But yeah, well, thank you very much for that question and for that insightful answer, Kyle. Next question from Jury VGC. What Pokemon do you think is the most fun to use in VG?
Jury came into my stream when I was in Sword and Shield format, and there was a team that I adored, and I got to Master Ball with it using my shiny Whimsicott and my shiny Mamoswine when Mamoswine was not getting too much love. And he went and he took and he played that team and was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, nobody's prepared for like Max Quake AV Mamoswine with Tailwind support. So Mamoswine is actually one of my favorite Pokemon to use in VG. ground and ice offensive coverage is amazing. Access to Oblivious, which has been buffed so that it ignores intimidate attack drops, is crazy. And even if you don't go that route, having Thick Fat as its other ability, so you no longer are technically taking super effective damage from fire and are now technically resisting ice damage. He has a lot that he can offer, and everybody loves clicking Earthquake. Like, who doesn't want to click Earthquake? Like, it's fun. It's like, all right, let's see who lives. So I think Mamoswine is one of my favorite Pokemon to use in VGC, even though I've never had like great success with it.
There's Pokemon that sometimes does have it crops up here and there.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Precisely, I think, as you say, because of that type coverage that it gets. Yeah, well, a really good answer. And let's hope we see more Mamoswine at some point.
Yeah,
thank you for that question, Jury. Kaguya Falls wants to know, how do you stay sane on some of the crazier shiny hunts?
Oh, man. You and I talked about this briefly before we got started, but one of the benefits of having two hobbies, it doesn't even have to be like two Pokemon hobbies. I think this is just like general good advice that I've taken from other people, is that when I have spent like that Regirock hunt was rough. I had an Electrode shiny hunt in Heart Gold that took 39,000 encounters. Sprigatito, I wanted to shiny hunt 18,000 encounters. Like these are some crazy hunts, but it wasn't just me sitting down and getting angry about them and putting my nose to the grindstone. They had breaks, and one of the benefits of liking VGC is that I still get to enjoy Pokemon. I want to spend time playing Pokemon today, I say to myself, but this shiny hunt is frustrating me. Guess what? I'm going to go on the online ladder and I'm going to use something really cheeky. Like I'm going to go play with my Wheezing Regigigas and just mess up somebody's Kyogre, like mess up somebody's Miraidon for funsies. So definitely swapping between your hobbies and finding, if you don't have another hobby, like if you just shiny hunt, learning VGC or learning a new game, learning a new skill, to cut through your hobby really helps you prevent from burning out. And then I also have, I'll just take a break and like go play some music, go do something else. So yeah, I think taking breaks is integral for any hobby that you have, especially if it gets to the point of being frustration. It's definitely a good time to say, maybe I should take a break.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also what you're doing while you're shiny hunting, right? If you're invested in a show you're listening to or watching, then it really does. The time just goes so much more quickly, and it feels like you're still having a fulfilling time. You're benefiting,
of course,
what you're doing. So yeah, from a seasoned shiny hunter, thank you, Carl, for that advice, and thank you, Kaguya, for the question. And final question now from, I believe someone you're quite familiar with, Tales of Taylor. And I'm just gonna quote what he wrote in that classic flippant style. Yeah, I have a question. Hypothetical. If you had a Charizard up against a Pokemon that knows a Rock-type move, as a VGC player, why would you use Fly knowing it has a chance to miss? Again, hypothetical, but why can't?
Just
why would you do that? Yeah, why would you do that knowing you're so unlucky?
Yeah, we definitely weren't doing like a challenge run side by side where if like a Pokemon I had was linked to one of his Pokemon and mine fainted, like his would be taken off of his team. That wasn't happening recently.
No.
At all. But like life is full of gambles, Tales of Taylor. And Heracross, I didn't know he knew rock moves. I was in Victory Road. Like that's not his standard level up set. How did I know he had Rock Blast? I knew he could learn it, but like he just didn't learn that. And like how did I know this Victory Road trainer would know that? And how did I know that I was going to miss the 90% accurate Fly? Like 90% of the time it knocks out every time. So maybe you should have trained other Pokemon other than your sock.
Oh. I guess. I mean,
but this is all hypothetical.
Yeah, exactly.
And is not grounded with any real story whatsoever.
Well, there's plenty to delve into there, and I hope that at some point we have the opportunity to see precisely the antics that you were referring to. Is that going to be what you're referring to? Is that going to be a video at some point?
Yeah. So Taylor is a content creator that I met in the Sword and Shield era, and he and I had such a blast getting on call with each other. We did something called a soul link, where we encounter Pokemon together and we make a bond between them. Once again, story building for my playthroughs and my tournament runs very integral. And no better way to do that than to like play through the game with one of your best friends and subject each other to RNG. So we did a playthrough of Sword and Shield where we got all the way to B, the fighting type gym leader, and there was just a random trainer on one of the routes with a Clefable that knew Metronome, and I got destroyed. Like, we lost the run because I had Drizzile, which was my starter Pokemon, and it uses Metronome and gets Dracozold's Bolt Beak. Is that what it was called?
Yeah,
I think
it
it's
is. Yeah.
his signature move, one shots.
Mm.
Cool, nice. Pull in my ground type Pokemon, and then it metronomes again into Petal Dance, and just like sweeps me from there. Like, it's the luckiest metronome user I've ever encountered my entire life. So when X and Y became popular again recently due to the servers closing for Wonder Trade, he and I decided we were going to do one more Wonder Trade challenge of some sort through X and Y. And that was super fun, and it's all recorded, and I cannot wait to share the journey. And you know, we might love each other a little bit more at the end, or hate each other. I can't remember. You'll have to see.
It'll probably be a bit of both. Sounds like it's going to be a
Might
little
make
bit
a
of
little
both.
bit of both.
Well, look out for that. I'm certainly excited to see how that unfolds. Fantastic. Well, if you'd like to submit a question for a future guest on Chazingdra Chats, then you can find me on @Chazingdra on X. That's where I put out the posts asking for questions. So get on over there if you'd like to be featured. And thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question for Kyle this week. Okay then, Kyle. So we've heard your story up to now, and now what's next for you?
So now that I've made day 2, I've got a taste of what it feels like, and I want to make Top Cut. And I'm going to keep shiny hunting. I have a lot of playthroughs that I'm doing right now, and I've just completed both the Heart Gold and Soul Silver shiny badge quests, the Johto portion of them, simultaneously. Like, almost, they were 34 encounters apart, where I got Ho-Oh in Heart Gold, and then 34 resets later I got Lugia, which was incredibly lucky. So I'm looking forward to making content around those runs, because they started with Regirock driving me insane, and then encouraging me to start another shiny hunt on the side. So those are 3 years in the making, and I'm very excited to put together those stories to tell. And I think I want to do more VGC online tournaments and just get more into the community, because the people that I've met so far have been completely amazing. Everybody, because of this connective sinew that we have in the form of Pokemon, we all have a mutual understanding of how much we appreciate the game, and it becomes very fun to get connected through that, and then find that you have other connective pieces to your lives. And I want to do more of that.
Connective sinew is a really good way of putting it. Yeah, it's the I find in this community, just people are so thrilled to share with others this passion for the game that we all enjoy so much. And yeah, well, all the best to you for your next goal of making Top Cut. And again, it's the thing that you do on the side almost by accident, starting the shiny badge quest, that is now becoming its own thing. So in a way, thank you, Regirock, for taking so long to show up. Also because again of just this lore that's been built up around you and Regirock. So fantastic. And now finally, Carl, looking back from now as someone who has day 2'd Indianapolis, someone who's really growing their name as a VG player, and of course a well-renowned shiny hunter, all the way back to young Kyle, who was use his grandmother's NES to play Zelda and Mario. What advice would you give to that younger you?
It's going to be all right. Things are going to get really tough sometimes, but at the same point, things are also going to be really great. And it's important to live in those moments, whether they are bad, because you can learn something from those, or whether they're good, because those are memories that you can keep in your back pocket for those bad times. So you've got this, and be present. Enjoy all of the little things in life, and you'll be much more fulfilled for it.
Fantastic. Really touching. Live in the moment. That's a great. I mean, there are so many lessons you've given us in this episode, but I think that's the main thing I'm taking away with me. Thank you so much, Kyle, for all of your insight there. And the chat doesn't end there. I'm about to get into Kyle's Rapidash round. So 15 minutes or so of bonus quickfire questions that Kyle has not prepared for.
Nope.
Things like, to give you a little preview, Carl, things like if you could choose one out of VGC and shiny hunting, what would it be? So, if you want to hear that Rapidash round of quickfire questions, that's where we tend to go another sort of layer deeper, and we discover that we've barely scratched the surface, in fact, in the main episode. So do hop on over to Patreon for that if you'd like to hear. You can subscribe and you can support the podcast. You can support me as a creator. I really appreciate you for listening to or watching this episode, regardless, and of course, only if you're in a position to be able to do that. But if you'd like to, it is there, and all the links are going to be in the description. So once again, Carl, thank you so much for coming onto the show. It's been, it's been a bumper episode. This you've given us so many pearls of wisdom, and I'm looking forward at this point to the edit and going through and rediscovering all of these things that you said. But there's so much that you've given us to think about, so much food for thought. So thank you so much for the care you've put into all of your answers today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Absolute pleasure to talk to another Pokemon enthusiast with a little bit of knowledge of both of the worlds that I love so much.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. And Kyle, if people want to keep up with you online, where can they find you?
I'm Kwikpanik everywhere. Kwikpanik. I'm on all of the things. And if you'd like to take a peek into my VGC prep or my shiny hunts, I do those all over on Twitch. And the storytelling that I like to do for my shiny hunts happens over on YouTube.
Yeah, it's got it all set up. Do make sure you check out Kyle's content. Something I've been dipping into for well, at least the past couple of years. So it's really cool to be able to have you on the show. And again, someone who blends passions of the breadth that Pokemon has to offer so well. Make sure you check that out. And if you'd like to keep up with the podcast and with the things I'm doing outside of the podcast, commentating events, creating, what have you, then you can, again, find me on X at Chazingdra, also on X, Chazingdra Chats, the show's dedicated account. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at Chazingdra. Of course, YouTube as well. If you're watching this here, do drop a like, a comment, a follow, all of those things, because they really do help out a lot. And again, Carl has given us so much food for thought. Would love to know what you think of what Carl has given us to think about, and also your 6 Pokemon that you would choose on your own dream team. Would be fascinating for us both to hear. If you're listening on an audio app, then do leave a rating and review. They go a long way as well. You know all of this stuff, but it does bear repeating because, as Carl can attest to, it's also very helpful in growing the community. The show is all about bringing together the entire Pokemon community, whether it's competitive, casual, or anything else. So I hope that there's something for everyone. Do tell your friends, spread the word, and you can join the Discord community that I've set up as well. Again, all of the links are going to be in the description. If you have any suggestions for the show, any feedback, I'd love to hear it, or suggestions for guests, then you can email me, chazingdra@gmail.com, or get in touch with me on any of the socials that I've mentioned as well. So, it's time for this Rapidash round, Kyle. And if you're not joining us over on Patreon for that, then it's goodbye from Kyle.
See you later. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time on Chazingdra Chats, where there'll be another 6 Pokemon, 1 life story. All right, Kyle, let's get into this. You pumped?
I'm pumped? Question mark?
Let's find out.